Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Gynarchic Awakening. Um, I'm about to go to the grocery store to get some banana. But before I get banana, I want to talk about um, some of my personal philosophy. Uh, I also want to talk about why I approach Gynarchy in the way that I do, because I have stated before that I don't trust state or federal governments, that I prefer community. So some people might mistake me for an anarchist. Um, I am unequivocally not an anarchist. I just don't put my faith in those institutions. It's that simple. Uh, and it isn't necessarily that I even have 100% faith in my community either. It's just that I believe in what I can, interact with. I can't interact with a state government in a direct manner. The same thing with a federal government. There comes a point at which a system becomes so much larger than you that you, A, do not have control over said system, B, you do not get to control the vast majority of what other people think, feel, what information they consume. You don't have any influence over those kinds of systems on that level. Even when you participate in them, you are still just a marginal piece of the whole, but one of many in a puzzle. So that's kind of what led me to the creation of the video, which is my skepticism towards any, and this is especially men who say, fuck the system, or there's something wrong with the system, blah, 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 blah. I've always found this to be an issue because for me, I'm not choosing to withhold my participation in this system because I believe it can be better or that there's some way we can make it better. I have simply abandoned the very notion that the system can be changed for the better, that we can somehow magically turn things around at the 11th hour. I don't believe in it. I'm sort of a separatist in that sense, in that I look at it, I see it for what it is. I understand why people participate in the system the way that they do. But what concerns me isn't really necessarily the concept. It's how people try to portray themselves as anti-system that kind of worries me. It's why whenever I see one of these males, um, I think Boy in a Band was one of them, where he was telling people to not go to school or something. You have other people. There's some kind of rapper guy. I think he. All these people to me are really just Bill Hicks and George Carlin knockoffs. And the reason why I don't trust any of them is because at the end of the day, there seems to be this implicit idea that we can somehow create in a permanent direction a better system, and that somehow that is inherently an idea worthy of pursuit. But when we look at the weight of human history, when has any one system ever been free of flaws? So whenever I see somebody saying fuck the system, the first instinct I have is, are you trying to get laid? Like, are you just trying to make it seem like you're Robin Hood or the good guy so that women will have sex with you? That is literally the first thought that comes to mind. The second thought that rolls through my brain when I'm listening to this shit is, okay, what are your ideas? Because half the time, like with George Carlin, he didn't even offer a solution. He said there is no solution and that everything should just be torn apart, or the asteroid should come down and destroy everything. So he didn't offer a solution. And at least I can respect the fact that he was honest about his position, because I genuinely believe he whatever he was saying, I think that was his truth. Then you listen to some of these other young men they talk about fuck this to them. Like, okay, so where are your ideas? Oh, you don't have any ideas. You're just here to criticize the system. Well, isn't that just fucking wonderful? Do you know how many people are like that in this world? People who can correctly identify. It almost seems to me like the thinking of a 6 year old. It's like, Mama, the data, the thing called the system, and it's like got flaws and stuff, and like, I think we need to improve it to help people. Yeah, congratulations. You made factual observations about reality. Doesn't matter whether it's a totalitarian system, a democrat, what is it, a representative republic. Take your pick. Every single system, whether it's economic or political, has flaws. Take your pick. So whenever somebody says "fuck the system," I'm like, okay, what are your ideas? And you know what happens 99 times out of 100? They're just there to bitch and complain. They're there to criticize and then go home if they're not doing it to get laid. So it's like, okay, well, that goes out the window. But then you have the third problem. The third thing that, when I hear men saying fuck the system, I get very alarmed because sometimes these individuals are actually more on the side of an individual or a political movement than they would lead you to believe. Like they say, "Oh, I hate the system." I'm like, okay. I saw this one rapper, he seemed like he was anti-system, and then he started promoting the fucking MAGA movement. That's what it looked like to me, anyways. I could have misunderstood or misinterpreted his intentions, but it seemed like that to me. So whenever I hear somebody saying fuck the system, I always think it's just another male who wants to manipulate the people around him into adopting whatever kinds of policies or positions he supports. In other words, I feel like there's like whenever I hear, and this is the fourth problem, whenever I hear the whole fuck the system thing, I think, do you just like, are you just angry because there's an opposition to your ideas and your policies? Because some people literally just hate the system because their opponents have a voice. So is that the reason why you hate the system? Or could it be that the reason why you hate the system is because you don't feel represented by it? I'm a little bit more sympathetic towards that. Like, I have a friend of mine who doesn't fall strictly into either camp of Democrat or Republican. So I can sympathize with that. That doesn't mean that I am on their side. This is, again, all of this stuff I'm saying is just I'm just trying to communicate the idea that you don't know what the intentions are of a person who, says fuck the system. It could just be a predator who's trying to gather a following or convert people to their cause. In other words, they know that there's a problem, that they know that there are issues, and what they do is, like any other manipulative group in history, or group of people, or even individuals, they take it, they identify people who have grievances, who are having personal problems. They get them on their side. And what usually happens, and this is why I don't support any men who are anti-system. In fact, generally when I hear this, I just want to walk the other way. Because ultimately, if you look at the course of history, you see the same problems over and over again, which is a bunch of men who claim to be so anti-revolutionary and fuck the system end up not solving jack shit and end up not really changing anything meaningful in the long run. For instance, you look at the French Revolution. They cut off a bunch of people's heads, and then eventually their heads got cut off. Did that change anything? Did that stop aristocrats from being a thing? Did that stop powerful people from existing? No, it doesn't change anything. We still have hierarchical systems. We might have changed the labels, but did we really change the overall scheme? Like back in the day, it was like, was it Blue Bloods or something? You had these rich aristocrats who had a lot of influence, were very politically powerful. And even though the names changed, now what we have is we just have a bunch of wealthy people who are really powerful and who have a lot of privileges that the rest of us will never know about. And some of them didn't even work for it, they were just born into it. Well, if we look at this, not necessarily, if we just look past the words that we're calling these people, what is so meaningfully different between a very, very wealthy person and an aristocrat? What is the difference between royalty and being a billionaire? Because both of them are living the good life. Hmm? That's the problem with that I have with these people who say, oh, they're so anti-system, because you're not changing shit. It's been like this for thousands of years. As long as human beings are clinging to hierarchical systems, especially hierarchical systems that males support, then all that's really happening is you're just having one group of males who are jealous at another group because they have all the shit that they don't. They have the more resources, they have access to more opportunities, more dating opportunities, because more people see it as viable. It's just a fact. Women will look at that and go, okay, if I can make things work with this guy, I've got a good life. That's what it is. And you think you're going to change the way people think? Like, people are going to suddenly stop buying lotto tickets and they're going to stop fantasizing about themselves being rich? That's another thing too, is what exactly is your problem with the system? Now, this is where I kind of withdraw myself from the whole thing. I don't even consider myself a revolutionary, despite what I've been called a pioneer before, because I do certain things that other people don't. But I don't consider myself a quote revolutionary, because the problem with every revolution is that it ends up becoming meaningless. So, for instance, we had the U.S. Revolution in 1776. And despite that happening, we had a civil war. And then now this country is falling into fascism. How about that? So everything that they fought for over 200 years ago doesn't mean jack shit in the end, because people for one reason or another give up their rights to an authoritarian. They get behind an authoritarian and that's it. Until they eventually decide, oh yeah, we want to have democracy again. And that's the problem. If you look at this not through the scope of your own life, because I think that's what a lot of people look at it through. They look at it through the lens of just their own life experience, and they're not looking at the patterns. People are just oscillating between extremes. That's really what's happening here. And so I don't consider myself a revolutionary because I don't need to destroy these systems. They will destroy themselves. That is where I differ from, these George Carlin, Bill Hicks knockoffs. If there was any difference, it would be that. Is I don't see myself as going, you know what I need to do? I need to arm myself and other people and go take over X, Y, and Z, because it's pointless. Because guess what? Sooner, you one order is gone, and then you have to replace it with another, because why? People have expectations of you. People are going to look to you to take care of them, because not every person wants to take care of themselves. So as long as we have a system, or as long as we have the wrong kind of thinking, we're never going to get anywhere. And people have different ideas all the time about how governments ought to be run, about how businesses ought to be run and regulated. This shit's never going to end. And in the meantime, what are we seeing? We're seeing the industrialized, civilized world is literally collapsing. We're seeing this shit happen and unfold in front of our eyes. I don't see the point in a revolution. And I just to be clear, to me, a revolution is about upending a system. I don't believe in that bullshit. I believe in cultivating a community and doing that in a positive manner. Revolutions are bloody. And also, revolutions in the long run are quite literally meaningless. Men cannot change shit.